And we are live. Welcome everybody to the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association's Facebook page. And in our new series of video programming, we are bringing you today a study that we're hoping to encourage some participation in. It's called Live-HCM. And we have with us today Drs. Rachel Lampert and Dr. Charlene Day, who are the co-principal investigators on this program. And for full disclosure, I do want to say that this is an NIH-sponsored study, and the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association is a participant in this study, as we've been assisting with recruiting since its inception. So we're going to start in just a second. We're going to give people an opportunity to populate, and when we start to see people pop in, then we'll kind of kick things up here a little bit. And 3, 2, 1, we are getting some add-ins, and we can begin. So I'm going to start this by asking my guests to introduce themselves and their roles in the program. So we'll start with Dr. Charlene Day.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. I am Charlene Day. I am a faculty member and the director of the Inherited Cardiomyopathy program at the University of Michigan. And we started the program here over a decade ago. And I am a co-principal investigator with Rachel Lampert and Michael Ackerman from Mayo Clinic on the Live-HCM study.
Great, thank you. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Lampert. I'm a professor at Yale University. I'm a cardiac electrophysiologist and arrhythmia specialist, I've been here since 1997, a long time. I'm working with Charlene and with Mike as the co-PIs of the Live-HCM study to look at the risks and benefits of exercise in individuals with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Great, thank you. Charlene, so within the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy world, there are some major questions regarding exercise and activity with the disease. Can you address some of the unanswered questions that we have right now?
Sure. So there are a lot of uncertainties about exercise in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy patients. Primarily, the concern is whether exercise could trigger an erratic heart rhythm that could cause a cardiac arrest or even a sudden cardiac death. And this concern comes from the fact that there are athletes that have died suddenly or individuals who are doing vigorous athletics, and the cause of their death is determined to be hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So as a result, we have some guidelines that are based on expert opinion and a consensus that are very conservative and recommend against vigorous or competitive type of athletics for individuals with HCM. But we really don't know for sure whether exercise triggers sudden cardiac arrest or death in those individuals preferentially over those who are perhaps exercising in more moderate recreational level or are not doing any formal exercise at all. And so what we hope to do with this study is to be able to look across the spectrum of exercise from people that do light to moderate recreational activity to those that are doing more vigorous or even competitive sports. And we'll look over a period of about 2 to 3 years for these individuals to look at how they do in terms of their outcomes. So of course, we're going to track things like whether or not they have any arrhythmias, if they have a defibrillator, whether their defibrillator fires more frequently in those that are more active at a higher level versus those who are less active. So look across the spectrum of exercise to determine how they do in terms of their HCM, and also what their quality of life is. And I think this has been a major area that has been, I won't say ignored necessarily, but I think hasn't been highlighted enough because exercise and being an active are really an important part of many people's lives. And obviously exercise has so many health benefits. So we really have to look at the other side of the equation, which is the quality of life that people experience with activity.
That's an excellent understanding of what we don't know. And before we can figure out what we have to learn, we have to really understand what it is that we don't know. But I think also important for the viewers today is to understand, how did this study design come to be? What is the history? And I'd like Rachel to discuss that a little bit for us.
Thank you, Lisa. So as you know, a couple of years ago, we did a study where we looked in a very fairly narrow way at a group of athletes who had defibrillators. There were over 400 athletes in that study, and but about 75 of them had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It was really the largest group. And what that study found is that for individuals who did have HCM with ICDs and were participating in sports, things actually were pretty safe. There were no bad outcomes in any of the patients, the HCM patients or the others. That study, though, left us with a lot of questions. The group of patients with defibrillators in HCM is fairly small. Most patients with HCM are not at high risk enough to require a defibrillator. And how much exercise is safe for that group of people is the question that we really were left with. And so that's what we're hoping to learn from this study. So we're again looking at patients who are active to those who are just somewhat active, maybe walking, to really even sedentary individuals like so many Americans, to see how they all do and how exercise may impact how those people do.
Great. So I'm going to just tail that right into some of the inclusion and exclusion criteria for the program, and what type of numbers we're looking to recruit and what happens during the enrollment process. A lot in there, but Rachel, can you try to address that for us?
Okay, so there's a couple of ways people can get enrolled in this study. For some people, they may be seen at a center where their doctor is a participating investigator, and for those people, their own doctor can get them signed up to be in the study. But for other people, we can sign them up through the central enrolling site, which is here at Yale. All of the assessments that I think we'll get to in a minute, Lisa, are done either online or on the phone, and so you don't have to go somewhere, you don't have to do any special tests to be in the study. So people can contact us here at the central site, even if your own doctor isn't a specific investigator. You can contact us here at the central site, and Lisa will put up our website that has the phone number, has the email address, etc. And we can basically we'll go through the details of the study with you on the phone. We'll also go through that here a little bit later, but we'll go through the details of the study with you on the phone. We'll send you the paperwork for the consenting. We'll ask you to sign a medical record release so that we can get your records from your doctor. And then once we have all of that paperwork done, we'll then get you started on the online questionnaires. So it's, did you want the inclusion and exclusion criteria? So as we had mentioned, we're looking for people at all levels of exercise, from people like so many Americans that just, kind of go about your day, to the moderate exercisers, to the more active individuals. We're really looking for people at all levels of exercise. If you just like to sit and read a book, we'd love to have you too. And it's from age 10 to age 60. Really, pretty much everyone can be in the study. There are not a lot of exclusion criteria. People who have severe heart failure that couldn't exercise even if they wanted to, this would not be in this study. But basically, anyone who's considered like a class 1 or class 2 would be in the study, or and really, for the most part, very few exclusion criteria.
So the definite top age is 60. So do they have to have turned 60 by the end of the study or at the beginning of the study?
No, it's at the beginning of the study. So as long as if you're 59 and a half at the beginning, that's okay, but you just can't be over 60 at the time of enrollment.
Okay, great. I have
and I was just going to say, a lot of families participate together. So it may be that there's kids and the affected parent will all be in the study together. We have a lot of families doing it together.
Okay, so every study, no matter what it is, has risks associated with it. And I want to do this in two parts, from the logistical part and the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy part. So for Dr. Day, I'd like you to address what risks there might be for somebody with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy to participate.
Sure. So I think it's important to realize that this is an observational study, which means that we are not endorsing or telling their individuals in the study to do any particular level of exercise. So we are simply observing what you're already doing in your daily life. So there really are no risks incurred specifically related to activity for patients with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy who are participating in the study.
Rachel, are there any other risks?
So as far as the study itself, as Charlene said, it's an observational study. We're not asking you to do anything that you aren't already doing. With any study, there's always a small risk of loss of confidentiality, but we do everything possible. And we've done a lot of different research studies, so we know the processes to keep everyone's information private. So that's really, it's an important risk, but it's one that we do everything that we can to minimize. So.
Fantastic.
One thing I just want to mention is that I misspoke. The youngest age that can be in the study is age 8, not age 10.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't going to say anything.
Clarification on that, but I'm like, I'm just letting everybody.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a really important point here, and I'm going to do a call out here that we really need those 8 to 25-year-olds in this study. We've got a lot of middle-aged people so far recruited in. And that's fantastic, and thank you all for your participation, and we'll go over those numbers in just a minute. But if you have young ones in the household, we really need them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's certainly the area that I think is in need of the most data. We just recently conducted a randomized clinical trial of moderate exercise training in adult patients with HCM, which we published last year. And that study seemed to indicate that moderate intensity exercise is safe. We didn't see any adverse events in those patients, but we really have very little data in the pediatric population, and young adults. So that's really the area where there's in need of the most information about exercise. And it's also the population that it tends to be the most active in terms of participating in gym class and in organized sports.
Great. Okay, so what is it that we are hoping to really learn from this study? We kind of talked about it a little bit there, but are there any particular moments that we're really looking for? Charlene, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So what we're hoping to learn, first of all, I think just looking across the spectrum of activity that patients with HCM are already doing, I think that we'll get valuable information just from the surveys that the patients who are participating in the study are answering with regard to their exercise practices. We have some idea about this. We did a survey with the HCMA a number of years ago now, and have some idea of how HCM patients spend their life in terms of how much activity they're doing. And overall, they seem to be less active than the general population. So that's something that we'd want to look at in this larger population. But importantly, the follow-up is what's really critical here, because we're going to have a follow-up of 2 to 3 years for each person in the study, and that will tell us how they do. So depending on whether they do a lot of exercise or little exercise or no formal exercise, are their outcomes any different? So outcomes is a word we use to describe things like, do they have an arrhythmia? Do they develop heart failure? Do they develop new symptoms? So those types of things, we'd like to know whether exercise has any relationship to those types of events. And then we also want to know how their quality of life is, whether people who are more active feel better about themselves. They see that their quality of life is better than those who are maybe less active, or maybe who have had restrictions recommended for them, where they've had to curtail some of their activities that they had previously participated in.
Rachel, is there anything else you want to get out of this, and you're hoping to?
Well, I think Charlene really summed it up. I think that's really what we want to learn. How safe is exercise? How much exercise? It may turn out that exercise, just like for the regular population, improves things. We just don't know the answer.
We did miss mentioning one part of being in the study, the Fitbit. So how are we doing exercise?
Yeah, so let me just take a minute to talk about what does it actually mean? What do you actually do in the study? So at the beginning of the study, we talked about the consent process. And once we have you consented, you'll speak on the phone with one of our coordinators. And you know what, Lisa, can I take this minute to just introduce our coordinators? Yeah, so I'm going to introduce our coordinators to just come in and say hello. We have Teresa Donovan. Do you want to just pop into the picture? Hello. So here's Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Day.
Hi, how are you? I've actually never seen you myself either. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's Teresa.
Okay.
Cheryl Barth, why don't you come on in? This is Cheryl Barth. Some of you, if anybody's already in the study, you may have met Cheryl or talked to Cheryl on the phone. And we'll bring in Sherry Small. Sherry's the most tech savvy of our group. So you may have anybody in the studies probably already communicated with Teresa and Cheryl and Sherry. Thank you for coming today too. So then to get back, so you'll talk to one of our coordinators We'll get you signed up for the study. What we'll then do is ask you to fill out some questionnaires that are online for the adults. And then for the children, we do the questionnaires on the phone. And there's two sets of questionnaires. One has to do with your actual activity level. So we ask about what kinds of things you do, how much time do you spend doing them, how much do you do now, what did you do when you were, when you were younger. And then the second set of questionnaires has to do with quality of life. So we'll do those two sets of questionnaires at the beginning. And then, as Lisa mentioned, we send you a Fitbit in the mail. And we ask you to wear the Fitbit at a minimum for 2 weeks at the beginning and then 1 week every 3 months. Although I think most of the participants are wearing the Fitbit all the time. You have access to your information just like any other Fitbit, so you can use the Fitbit however you'd like. And then every 6 months, we send you a survey online. For kids, we send the survey to the parents, and then for the adults, we send you the survey directly that asks you how you're doing. Have you been hospitalized? Have you passed out? The types of outcomes that Charlene was talking about. And then at the very end, we again ask you about the quality of life types of questions. So it doesn't require going anywhere. There's no new test. It's really just mostly answering questionnaires online that keep us appraised of how you're doing.
So I'm going to ask a technical question that we didn't discuss in advance. So if somebody wants to participate and they sign the documents and you need their medical records,
Sorry. Yep.
the life of doctors, right?
Sorry, 1 second. Can I call you back?
You can't plan this.
Hi, can I call you back?
I will be with you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Click live TV.
Sorry about that.
No problem. So how do we know that the patients really have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and that it's okay for them to participate in the study?
So what we do is, as we're initially talking to you, we do ask you to sign a medical record release that we then get your records from your doctor or your hospital. Some of the records we do get an echocardiogram that we send to our core lab is at the Mayo Clinic. We mentioned Dr. Michael Ackerman is one of our participants, and he's there at Mayo. And so we have the echo overread as well by one of the Mayo Clinic echographers there to confirm the diagnosis. Pretty much everyone who has contacted us has met the criteria. It's pretty rare that we end up going through the process and the person's unable to enroll. It's happened, but it's pretty rare.
Okay.
One other thing to add is that if you have your own Fitbit and you want to participate, we can use your own Fitbit. So some people have fancier Fitbits than the one we provide in the study with heart rates and everything. So, but we can use their own Fitbit as well.
Fantastic. So Charlene, can you address the timelines of the study?
Sure. So we hope that within about 2.5 years, everybody will have completed the study, which includes enrollment and the period of follow-up. And at that point, we will be able to collate the data and analyze the data and put it together for public release in probably an oral format at a meeting as well as a manuscript. And then, through you and other sources, we'll be able to get it out to everybody so that they're aware of the results. So that will probably be somewhere in the span of 3 to 3.5 years before we have data available to help inform exercise recommendations for patients with HCM.
So I'm just thinking this through a little bit and knowing how this speed is in clinical research and trials, et cetera. So once we get the results and we were able to organize them in a manner in which they can be presented and published, then it's going to be a little bit longer until recommendations may change if they're going to, because we have to process what we're learning and then we have to facilitate them into new guidelines and recommendations. So we're probably not talking about any major changes in restrictions for at least 5 years, right?
Well, I think, we use the guidelines, when we're counseling patients, but they are just guidelines. And as we talked about at the beginning, they're based on expert consensus. And I think not just this study, but there are many other studies ongoing, including population studies of sudden cardiac arrest in the general population that have shown, for example, that HCM is actually a very infrequent cause of cardiac arrest in young individuals, which is counter to what was published maybe a decade or more ago. And so I think that we will have accumulated enough data that I think that we can counsel patients before based on the data from the Live study, as well as other studies that, that have been published or will be in the next few years, even before the guidelines change. But yes, it does take some time to assemble a new guideline committee and to incorporate all the information into a formal guideline. But hopefully we can still be counseling patients. And we really support an informed decision-making model in counseling individuals from children to adults about what they should be doing in terms of exercise. And we believe that it is really their decision, and that they all can make an informed decision about what they feel comfortable doing.
And I think that we should think about the data and the results of the Live study really as helping to inform that shared decision-making process, because such a big part of it is talking about the data and what did the study show, and were the people who were in the study similar to you, the person that we're talking to. And so I think we'll be able to start informing that process, as Charlene says, even before formal guidelines are taken up again.
I agree. I think this is going to be a nice long process, but I think we've already started to turn the corner on what we're learning about activity levels in HCM. So it's been nice to see this change from one extreme to maybe the middle, and that's really nice. So can we review some numbers here? How many are registered already? How many more do we need? Are there specific targeted age groups or demographics that we really need in the study that we don't have enough of now?
So at this point, our goal is about 2,300, and we have about 1,900. So we're well on the way. We do need about 400 more people. So we do need plenty of other people to join. So as far as what demographic types of groups, as you mentioned earlier, Lisa, we need people of all ages, but we would love to get more children and young people involved. So we do have a fair number of the children and the young people, but it would be great to get as many more kids as we can. Also, as with a lot of studies, so many participants tend to be Caucasians, and so certainly people of other demographic groups we are looking for as well. Any people of any demographic group, we'd love to get enrolled.
Do we have a good split between men and women at this point?
Yeah, we do have a pretty good. We were doing pretty well as far as gender breakdown.
Okay, so gender's okay, but we need non-Caucasians and we need children.
Yeah, but we also need everybody. We need everybody.
Yeah. Anybody wants to participate.
Yeah.
So if you're a middle-aged white guy, it's still okay to
yes.
sign up.
That's right. That's right.
We could enroll, technically speaking, more than the 2,300, correct?
Yes. And in fact, that's a good point. We may be increasing the numbers just as we're able to enroll. So that's sort of the minimum that we're looking for is 400, but we may actually go over, as you say.
Okay.
Because we've had a lot of people interested, and the more that we can get enrolled, the more we'll have to say. So
fantastic. So just as an overview, once somebody has made the wonderful decision to decide to participate, they're going to sign a consent. They're going to have their medical records reviewed. They're going to then be fully admitted into the protocol. They'll get a Fitbit, and then they'll be getting questionnaires on a quarterly basis. And then will you be checking other echocardiograms down the line, or is it the one-time screen on the echo?
That's another great question. Right. For the purpose of this study, we're really focused on characterizing the people at the beginning. So we'll just with the single echo. Down the road with other studies, we may think about looking to get subsequent echoes so that we can actually look at the progression of the cardiomyopathy itself. But for now, for this study, we're really just getting the one echo at the beginning.
And we're not actually doing any testing as part of the study. So all the echoes that are done are part of the care that they're receiving from their physician already. And we just get the results from the echo. So we're not actually ordering or any testing specifically for the study.
Right. Everybody with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy's got an echo in the file, and that's how you got diagnosed. So that's what we're looking at. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any thoughts that either of you want to share? Anything we missed? Any points you want to draw out to the attention of the listeners?
Well, one thing I'd just like to say is to thank you, Lisa, both for helping with this study and being involved in this study from the beginning, and also, of course, for everything that you do for HCM. So it's really, and it's a pleasure to be on this show with you. It's really great.
Thank you.
And thank you. If anybody out there is watching who has already enrolled in the study, thank you. We're very grateful for your participation. We would not be able to learn anything without you. And
Absolutely.
This is, I think, is going to be really critical for us to be able to provide lifestyle recommendations for patients with HCM everywhere.
I did want to add one thing that we did discuss, and I'm sorry I kind of cruised over this one. What are you hearing from people that are participating in the study? Do they enjoy the experience? Are they having a decent time with it? Are they excited to be part of research? What are they thinking?
I think people, from what we hear, people really are enjoying being in the study. I think it's answering a question that so many people care about the answer. And so I think for a lot of people, helping to contribute to getting that answer about exercise really has been something that people have really found very satisfying. My favorite quote comes from a kid who said, I'm like having fun with these surveys, but I'm just doing it for the Fitbit. And so the kids are enjoying the Fitbit part, and as I said, a lot of families are doing it together, and I think we're really getting a lot of positive feedback from the participants.
I will disclose that I have several family members in the study. I no longer qualify, so sorry, you can't have it. All right, and so the address is up here right now. If anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask, they can ask them now, and we can stay on here for another minute or two and address any questions you might have. So I'll just put a little Q&A time up, and if anybody wants to do that, they can. I'll give them a minute. I should have done that a minute ago. My apologies. So we'll just have to banter among ourselves for a moment while we see if anybody has any questions.
So people have questions, what, they type it into their phone or how?
Yeah, they just like you would type in Facebook, any other type of comment on a thread, they can pipe that in. And if anybody wants to ask us a question while we're live, and it is currently 5 p.m. Eastern time on February 15th, they can ask us live and we can address them. If they're watching after this time, which is when most people do watch, they can post their questions and I will personally respond to them as I see them pop in. But they can also contact Live-HCM and ask directly to the study coordinator, which really is the best person to ask most questions of because they know all the technical stuff. So it doesn't look like we have anybody asking questions right now. So they must have gotten all the information that they need from us.
Okay.
So I think good.
Okay.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you
so much
in this research.
Yeah, thank you. This really was fun. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.